Welcome to Sphere Flying Cities Let's Play. This Space City Builder has been in early access on Steam and its full release is set for October 13th. We're about to fly through space under a dome with a flying city. We aim to shelter refugees, assign them a city, gather resources, and survive in a dangerous environment. And all of this with me, Riding Bull, together with one of the developers, one of the game designers from Hexagon Games in Hanover. Best regards to Tobias. Hi, Toby.
Hello, nice to be here.
I'm also very glad. We already did some streams together with a developer. Back then, you had just started in early access, and now you're about to release. A long development period is behind you. We'll bring everyone along, even those new to the game, and show you something not yet in early access, the tutorial. At least in this version, it's not included yet. Until now it was integrated into the campaign and so on, but now it's separated in this version. It's a standalone game mode. There's also a campaign based on different missions you can play, and a sandbox mode. We want to experience the tutorial together now, and we'll do it in English. However, you can also play the entire game in German. The tutorial is still being worked on. Because it's not finished yet, we want to use English for now. Since the German texts aren't fully ready, they will be by the full release. Toby, could you please tell the people who don't know the game yet, in 4 or 5 sentences if you can, what Sphere Flying Cities is about?
Of course, well, as you already said, it's a city building game. It's a city builder, but with a few special features. Because you're traveling with your entire city, which is flying, searching for resources and survivors, and also to progress in the campaign. That means it's a very unconventional, futuristic city building simulator.
So we'll start with the simple things. You move here with right and left and in all directions down to the bottom right. You can do that right now. Hints. As you can see, Tobias is slightly ahead, but there are percentage values that slowly fill up when you move everything correctly. But first, let's take a look at the game world. Take a look here. This is the dome around us, a cloud field, and this is the earth or stone block we're moving on. The story will be told later, at the beginning of the campaign with an intro film as well. We'll focus on that later. In any case, for now we're flying through space on this chunk here. Later you'll also see a map of the galaxy, where you can fly back and forth from one star sector to another. We have citizens. At the top, you can see the 50 people in the arm who work for us, and there are different goods, which you can also see at the top in the tooltips. There are 12 of them that we can produce. Some of them are finished goods that we make from others. We have to produce food for our colonists. There are 4 game speeds. You can pause in real time or set it to single, double or triple game speed. There's also a help encyclopedia in the top right corner. There you can find explanations for each chapter here in English, but as I said, in the full release version there will also be explanations in German for all important game mechanics. At the top you see a blue bar showing the number of people you have. Those without houses are shown in black on the bar. We need to build houses soon, then the bar will be full. Only the people we've housed can work. That means we're really motivated to build such houses here. At the top right you can see a breakdown of the people, and what's crucial is this dome here in the middle. It has a radius that we can expand through research. It gets bigger and bigger. And the dome also has a shield strength. That also gets unlocked through research, and then you can make it bigger and stronger. The shield. The bigger you make it, the larger the radius you cover with the shield, and the stronger the shield is, the better protected you are against disasters like meteor impacts or radiation or any toxic substances or other things that can torment us during the game. The more you increase these values, the more energy you need. The energy in turn is shown up here in the middle. You need a surplus, a small surplus, or at least to break even. For the dome to run properly, if it doesn't run well over time, you have a problem. If the dome doesn't run smoothly for a longer period, the game collapses, and that means game over. Below that is a battery bar, allowing you to collect some energy and encouraging you to maintain a surplus. However, the battery has a limited runtime, so you can't collect it infinitely. It protects you from the game ending immediately when you're in the negative. And up here is the shield strength, which is displayed here. The build menu is at the bottom left. I'll show you in a moment here, right next to me on the left. There you can see different overlays that you can display by simply hovering over them. For example, you can see where people are working, where there's pollution, here how the health looks, here which buildings are protected by the shield and other things as well. In the middle you can see different game modes, which we'll switch between later on as we go. That was a mini baby crash course for sphere flying cities in 3 minutes, but now we want to go into a bit more detail. Yes, we'll start by zooming in and out a bit here and rotating the map. You also spent a lot of time making the game world look appealing, Tobias.
We definitely tried and we succeeded in some parts. In many areas, there's definitely still potential to improve things even further. But of course, we've already spent a long time developing it, and the game has steadily grown along with us, so to speak. In terms of scope, but also in terms of the look, and yes, of course, also around Dom.
We just built roads. They're central. The buildings have to be constructed first. They're not there immediately by drones, which then fly in and gradually pull them out. The roads up here in front, on the other hand, are there immediately once you build them, and the main utilities also run through them. That means everything that's transported here, whether it's energy or whatever, runs through pipes, tubes, and the canal network under the roads. All buildings have to be connected, first, to these roads and pipeline and cable networks. And secondly, they also have to be connected to the central building in the middle, this one here, which is responsible for the sign here. Now we have to take care of the people who are homeless, who don't have a roof over their heads. There are 58 people. As shown by the black bar, 9 have no roof over their heads, and we will help them now. The build menu is down here on the left. Let's open it up. It's divided into tabs. The tutorial covers key functions, starting with simple houses. Later we can build bigger houses. Concrete, called Beton in German, and steel are required for these buildings. The small building needs only a little concrete. We're well equipped in the tutorial with plenty of concrete in reserve. It shows us about 340. We'll place a few more of the houses. It's actually not a bad idea to place the houses relatively close together, because there are certain buildings that you place next to the residential houses or inside the residential area, like in the middle. Of those that have a positive radius and give neighboring buildings happiness or health or other benefits. And right now I don't know by heart which buildings will come next and how big they are, but let's build a few here next to the others that are already here. I'll place one here, and with the middle mouse button you can rotate the entrance so that a road is created. We'll place one here and another one here. They're being built. Drones are coming. The starting building automatically provides a drone. You can get additional drones for faster construction or for other actions if you later build a special building that provides drones. We'll place another one, let's say, right here. That should work too, but with the shield you can't be completely sure. The shield may need to be enlarged. I'll put another one here. We'll move one up here in the front, build a road here, and then so that everything is connected. And that will definitely be enough. Later in the campaign in sandbox mode, workers will walk around the street so it won't feel lifeless. There will be both buildings and people here. The tutorial has grown over time, and there are many new features that have been added during the early access period. I'll keep building and take care of food, but maybe you can tell us a bit, Tobias. Over time you added more and more features and noticed things at the beginning of the game as well. When the game first launched in early access, players said the difficulty was still too high, right?
Exactly. At the very beginning, we actually heard from many players that the mechanics weren't really understood, that it was simply too complex. It wasn't accessible enough. So we already had quite a lot in the game at the start of early access, and then we just tried to gradually make it a bit more accessible. And then very quickly, based on the feedback or demand. We also introduce difficulty levels quite fast. So now you can simply tell the player, hey, just start on easy and get your bearings a bit. And then maybe later you can switch to a harder difficulty level. And of course, the tutorial is also meant to help with that, so that players who maybe haven't fully understood or internalized the mechanics can play the tutorial first and then dive into the campaign without having any question marks over their heads.
Tobias and his team suggest playing the tutorial first. Afterward, you can choose either the campaign or sandbox mode. Both share a similar role in gameplay. In early access, sandbox mode will include randomly generated maps. That means there's a great opportunity for replay value, and you can play the game over and over again. The difficulty levels aren't available in the tutorial, since that wouldn't make sense, but they will be available later in the other modes. Here, it's explained how the food system works. There are basically 3 types of food in the game: vegetables, meat, and seafood. And later on, these can be further improved through kitchens. There are 2 different effects. The more varied the food is, meaning the more of these 3 food sources, vegetables, meat, and seafood, there are, that increases the people's satisfaction, while the nutritional benefit is increased by how much the food is processed. In other words, whether it's eaten raw or prepared in kitchens. Hope I explained that right, Toby.
Almost, so definitely very good. There's also another type, which is processed food. So there isn't just raw food and cooked food, as you can see in the soup kitchen in a moment. There, the food is cooked. But there's also another level of refinement, if you will, which is processed food. And that one also has the highest level of satiety. The 3 types, raw, cooked, and refined, each have a different level of satiety. And then there are also the 3 different varieties. So, as you already mentioned, vegetables, meat, and seafood. And from this mix, as a player, you can pick the items that give your colony the highest food satisfaction. So it's also partly a campaign where you gradually make your colony a bit happier with a more varied diet, and then the loyalty to the whole project increases. And one more little thing. We're not traveling in space, as you mentioned at the beginning. That always gets assumed so quickly. And of course, people just assume that because you don't see anything from Earth or any other parts of Earth. But it's a sphere we're traveling in, which is between the Earth and orbit. So we're still in low Earth orbit. We're not moving from star to star. Just to clarify the context a bit.
Glad you brought it up. I just placed the kitchen. You notice the green area around it. Many buildings in the game have 2 effects. A constant production effect, such as food being processed, produced, and made available. Some buildings also provide a second positive effect. That's this radius. You don't have to use it, but you can use it to get an additional bonus within the area of the radius. And here it provides a feeling of satiety or additional satisfaction for the people living here. For the residential buildings around it.
Exactly. The communal kitchen has a loyalty boost as a secondary effect. So on the one hand, as you already said, food is cooked there. The second effect, which is then also visualized in the area of influence or through the area of influence, that is the effect in this case on the loyalty of the residents, the colonists who are within the area of influence.
A few questions are coming in from the chat. Where are all the destroyed buildings? They do exist, but they're in a different mode. They're not here in the tutorial. That was removed. You can now find them in a regular game. We'll check on that later. So what happens if loyalty drops? Before we answer that question, let's take another quick look at the topic of plagues and diseases. If there are accidents at work or due to air pollution, or if you eat raw food and less processed food, then it can happen that people get sick or plagues break out, whatever the case may be. Up here it shows. Yes, the sick people would be shown up here or up here in a red section of the bar. Now let's continue. We have to build a help center up here and connect it. That's what we'll build next. Here's a question. What if loyalty drops? Havarian is asking you, Toby.
So loyalty is a very, very important value that you have to pay attention to as a player. Because if loyalty drops too low, it affects the birth rate. So loyalty, like a few other factors, plays a role in the birth rate. And we'll definitely come back to that later. Pay close attention to that because everyone has a life cycle. All colonists, which means they will eventually die. And if you have a reproduction rate, meaning if the birth rate isn't above 1, by now we're familiar with all these R values and the like, then the colony dies out. That means you have to pay attention to loyalty and of course also to health. Loyalty is not the only factor in controlling and influencing the birth rate and reproduction within the colony.
Now comes the thing I just explained about the effect radius around certain buildings. So there are two types of bonuses. In buildings there is the production itself, for example, or the service, and this extra feature within a certain radius. Now we're discussing energy, very important. The game is only in German for the tutorial, which isn't in early access yet, so we're playing in English. There's a public early access version. The game is available on Steam. You can find the link, I'll say, in the YouTube description below and on Twitch. Just like that, Stetman Thanks has just posted the link to the Steam page again. You can already buy, download, and play the game yourself there. This tutorial isn't included in the current early access version as of early October 2022, only starting from the full release on October 13th. What happens at the edge of the platform? Akira Nagasaki asks if you can't build beyond that. Toby Nay.
You can't build any further there. In any case, that will be difficult, yeah. At the beginning, I think even in the last stream, we talked about possible expansions of the building area. It's possible that this might come later in some form, maybe in downloadable content or something, but it's not included in the full release version. We also did this during early access. At first, we thought that the area wouldn't be enough, that you'd run out of building space very quickly, or that the building area would be filled up really fast. But it actually takes a really long time, so you might think that at first. Yeah, the playing area isn't that big, but it's larger than it looks. And that's why it really takes quite a while until you reach the limit there, which has also somewhat put the necessity of these extension platforms into perspective.
You just saw I'm building the first power plant. Energy, as I explained at the beginning, you absolutely need electricity so you don't lose the game. If the energy balance at the top stays below 0 for a longer period, then the shield here will collapse. And if at some point there's no energy available at all, you've simply lost, because the missing shield can no longer protect the city and the citizens. Energy is very important. You saw me at the power plant with a red area around it. That's one with special environmental pollution, which means that whoever lives around it is especially affected. But besides that, there's also environmental pollution, but this one has a particularly nasty effect. Did I explain that correctly?
Yes, well, the area of influence can also be negative. In this case, with the power plant, within this radius, the red-colored radius, there's simply an impairment for the colonists living nearby. That means you shouldn't necessarily live right next to the power plant. I would say that's not exactly the nicest place to live in real life either. And that's why it's made a bit realistic in the game as well. There's more pollution near the power plant, so it's not an ideal place to live. And that's how you build the city, of course, with an industrial sector and a residential area. You don't mix them completely, although you could, of course. We don't want to take anything away from the player, but these spheres of influence, as I said, both positive and negative, should be taken into account a little bit.
With each of these buildings, you can bring up such screens. Just click on them, and there it is. The key is the number of people you assign. There's always a minimum number of citizens you have to assign for the thing to work at all. That's the left section here. In this case, 6 employees, male or female, have to be here, otherwise the power plant won't run at all. You can go up to 8, which matches the values above. Then the efficiency of the building increases, and then the full output of the building can or will actually be achieved. However, in some buildings, not all, there is also this display here called skilled workers. That means later in the game, if you build an education, training or schooling building, people will be trained to become specialists. And if you assign them here as well, a check mark will appear. Then the building will also generate a bonus yield. Here you can see the general efficiency value that results from this. Since we have provided all of them, the minimum and maximum number of skilled workers is reached and the full efficiency value is achieved. Below that, you see a priority. This has the following meaning. Usually, you don't assign workers to buildings manually, but instead, you rely on the AI, the artificial intelligence, to manage the settlement and do this according to your specifications. That means you prioritize which buildings should potentially get how many workers in relation to each other. You can do this by assigning priority levels here when you go up, and that means it has especially high priority. Then, if there are too few workers, they will be taken from other buildings. If you set a very low priority value, people will be taken away again in relation to other buildings. New immigrants are always arriving here. Other people get sick, for example, or I don't know, drop out in some other way, or are in the infirmary. That means you don't have to manually go back and forth between buildings and adjust things, but usually you just set a priority once, and you say, I essentially need these buildings and focus on them, and then you hope or rely on everything being adjusted accordingly. Of course, there are sometimes crises in the game, like when meteors strike, for example, or when a certain resource suddenly becomes extremely scarce. He might also say in the moment, wow, now we all really have a lot to do. A power plant has broken down, so a lot of people need to send in an extra power plant. Then there might be situations where he makes further adjustments. Something like that would be possible, for example. Hope I explained it right, Toby.
Absolutely. So the priority should not be underestimated. And a small change that's coming in, which is of course also a help for the players, is that you can also apply the priority. There will be a small checkbox next to it to all buildings of the same type. Now, for example, if you have 10 power plants, you only need to increase the priority once, and it applies to all of them. So that's something that's coming just as a little preview, since we were just talking about it.
We also need to ensure good air, and we'll check that. We're recording on Twitch for YouTube too. Just to mention again, I'll show the playlist. There are many videos that were made earlier about sphere flying cities, and then there's a playlist for this Let's Player. From this series, we start with the tutorial, then the campaign, and continue from there.